October 1962. For 13 days, the world holds its breath. In the deepest freeze of the Cold War, the two great superpowers, the United States and the Soviet Union, each armed with weapons capable of ending civilization, stand closer to nuclear war than human beings have ever stood, before or since. It begins with a photograph. A high-flying American spy plane, soaring over the island of Cuba, brings back images of something that turns the blood cold. In Washington, the Soviet Union is secretly building launch sites for nuclear missiles, 90 miles off the coast of Florida, missiles that could strike American cities in minutes. President John F. Kennedy gathers his closest advisors in secret. The generals urge him to bomb the sites and invade the island. Kennedy, fearing that any strike could trigger the very war he is trying to avoid, chooses a middle path, a naval blockade, a ring of warships thrown around Cuba to stop any more weapons from reaching it. On the 22nd of October, he tells a frightened nation the truth in a televised address. For days, the world watches Soviet ships steam toward the American line, wondering whether they will stop or force the confrontation. "We're eyeball to eyeball," one official says, and I think the other fellow just blinked. But the crisis is not over. It is only tightening. The most dangerous day is Saturday, the 27th of October. That morning, an American U-2 is shot out of the sky over Cuba, and its pilot is killed, the first blood of the crisis. Another spy plane strays by accident into Soviet airspace, and for a few terrifying minutes, the two nuclear powers are a misunderstanding away from war. And beneath the waves, unseen by anyone above, an even closer call is unfolding, one the world would not learn of for decades. For deep beneath the Atlantic, an American destroyer group has been dropping practice depth charges on a Soviet submarine, B-59, to force it to surface. Inside that submarine, the situation is a nightmare. The vessel has been out of radio contact for days. The air is foul. The batteries are failing. The temperature has climbed past 50 degrees. And the exhausted crew has no way of knowing whether the war has already begun above them. The captain, believing it has, gives the order to fire the submarine's secret weapon, a nuclear torpedo, powerful enough to obliterate the American fleet overhead. But launching it requires the agreement of 3 senior officers aboard. 2 say yes. The third, a soft-spoken flotilla commander named Vasily Arkhipov, says no and refuses to move. His single, stubborn refusal holds back the apocalypse. The torpedo is never fired. In the days that follow, cooler heads prevail. A secret deal is struck. The Soviets withdraw their missiles, and the world exhales. That is the history written in our world. A world that survived because one man in a steel tube, in the dark, said no. But our world is only one of many. Time runs in branches, and every branch turns on a single moment that might have gone another way. A word spoken or a word withheld. A man who says no, or a man who says yes. Somewhere in that endless web of what-ifs lies a reality where the refusal never came, where the torpedo left its tube, and where the 13 days ended, not in relief but in fire. Let us cross over and follow that world all the way to its end. The moment of divergence comes far beneath the sea, on that same terrible Saturday. In our timeline, Arkhipov holds firm against the other 2 officers, and the torpedo stays in its tube. In this one, worn down by the heat and the fear and the hammering of the depth charges, he does not. The 3 men agree. Deep in the Atlantic, a 10-kiloton nuclear warhead detonates beneath the hulls of the United States Navy. In a flash brighter than the sun, a column of superheated water climbs toward the sky, and an American aircraft carrier and the destroyers around it are simply gone. Thousands of sailors killed in a single instant. For the first time since Nagasaki, 17 years before, a nuclear weapon has been used in anger. And this time, the target is American. From that moment, the machinery of annihilation runs almost on its own. The men in Washington have built their war plans for exactly this, a Soviet nuclear attack, answered without hesitation by a massive nuclear response. The generals who had pressed all along for action no longer need to argue. Whatever Kennedy himself wants in that shattering hour, the pressure to retaliate is overwhelming, and the machine he sits atop is built to move fast. American forces surge to their highest alert. The bombers of the Strategic Air Command, already circling on airborne patrol, turn toward their targets. The order goes out to the missile silos and the submarines. The invasion of Cuba, so long debated, begins in earnest and on the island. Soviet commanders holding their own tactical nuclear weapons use them against the American troops waiting ashore, killing tens of thousands more and slamming shut any last door that might have led back to peace. And then the strategic weapons fly. This is not the arsenal of later decades with its tens of thousands of warheads, but it is more than enough. The United States holds a crushing advantage, hundreds upon hundreds of bombs and long-range missiles, far more than the Soviets can answer in kind, and it brings that full weight down upon the Soviet Union. Moscow, Leningrad, Kyiv, and the great industrial cities of the Soviet heartland vanish beneath mushroom clouds. But the Soviet Union is not helpless. What it lacks in reach across the ocean, it makes up for closer to home, and it empties its arsenal into the one place it can strike with ease: Western Europe. The allies of the United States pay a horrific price for their loyalty and their geography. Soviet missiles that could never cross the Atlantic have no trouble crossing the plains of Germany, London, Paris, Bonn, Rome. The ancient capitals of the West are struck one after another. The cities of Eastern Europe, the Soviet Union's own satellites, are annihilated in turn by American weapons aimed at Warsaw Pact targets. And because the war plans of the age make little distinction, the fire spreads even to nations that had no part in the quarrel, as targets across the communist world, China among them, are struck simply because the plan says they must be. In the span of a single afternoon, the most densely populated and heavily armed band of the earth is turned into a chain of funeral pyres. Nor does America escape. The Soviet Union cannot match the American arsenal, but it does not need to match it to draw blood on the far side of the ocean. The handful of long-range missiles it can send across the Atlantic and the bombers that slip through the defenses are enough to bring the war home to the nation that began the day feeling almost safe. Washington is struck, and with it much of the government of the United States. Great cities that had never truly imagined the fire, a city on the Hudson, cities on the lakes and the coasts, learn in a single instant what the word had only ever meant when it happened to someone else. The country that had ended the last war with the bomb discovers, too late, what it is to stand on the receiving end of one. The dying, in those first hours, is beyond any number the mind can hold. Hundreds of millions of people are killed outright, in the blast, in the firestorms that consume whole cities, in the wave of radiation that follows. Governments simply cease to exist. The great institutions of the 20th century, the seats of power, the centers of learning, the industries that fed and clothed half the world, are erased between lunch and nightfall. And for the survivors on the edges of the destruction, the ordeal has only begun, because the sky itself is about to turn against them. For the burning cities lift millions of tons of soot and ash high into the atmosphere, where the winds spread it into a dark veil across the whole of the northern hemisphere. The sun dims, temperatures fall, even in the warmth of summer. Crops that survive the blasts wither in the sudden cold and the poisoned rain, and the harvests fail across continents. Fallout drifts on the wind far beyond the targets, salting the land and the water with invisible death. What the bombs did not kill in a day, the cold and the hunger and the sickness set about killing over the years that follow, and the famine reaches even into distant lands that never heard a single warhead fall. And so the map of the living is redrawn. In our history, it was the nations of the North, America, Europe, the Soviet Union, that shaped the world after 1962, the space race, the long peace, the age of computers and connection, the eventual thaw of the Cold War. In this world, that entire North lies in ruins, and the center of whatever civilization endures shifts south, to the lands the Great Exchange largely spared, to South America, to Africa, to Australia and the southern reaches of Asia. Spared the direct fire, they are not spared its shadow. The failed harvests, the collapse of the global trade that had fed them, the tide of the dying. But it is here in the South that humanity clings on. And here that the slow, painful work of rebuilding will one day have to begin, in a world that has lost its old masters, its old centers, and most of its memory of what came before. And here there is no comfort to offer, no hidden silver lining to soften the horror, as some of history's catastrophes seem to grant. This one is only what it is, the end of a world, delivered not by monsters, but by frightened, ordinary men doing what the system around them was built to have them do. That is the most sobering truth of all. The war did not require a villain. It required only thousands of weapons, standing ready on a hair trigger, and a single afternoon in which too many things went wrong at once. And 3 exhausted men in a submarine, with no way of knowing that the world above them was not already ending. And yet there is one dark thread of meaning to pull from it. For in our own timeline, it was precisely because the world glimpsed this abyss and stepped back from its edge that its leaders learned to fear it. The hotline between Washington and Moscow, the first treaties to slow the arms race, the long habit of caution that kept the peace for the rest of the century. All of it was born from how close 1962 came. Our world got the lesson without paying the price. This one pays the price and is left with no one to teach. Follow that road to its end, and you arrive at the most vertiginous truth this series has yet touched. Everything that came after that October, every life born into the second half of the 20th century and beyond, every song written, every discovery made, every ordinary morning of the modern age belongs to us only because a torpedo was never fired. Not because of a treaty or a general or a president, but because of one weary man, far beneath the sea, in a dying submarine, who looked into the same abyss as everyone else and, alone among the 3, refused to open the door to it. The whole of our world hangs on that one refusal. That is how thin the line can be between the history we know and the history that might have been. This has been Historically Parallel.